Hey guys, so you can see here we have another huge Moyu unboxing today, and so first up are some new cubing classroom puzzles. Now I'm not especially excited for these, but you know, I'm always curious about new budget cubes. And these here are some of the new mirror block type variations. We have a 3x3 one and a windmill one. And this one is the MoHuanShouSu Chuwen 2x2. Now I have heard a lot of things about this one, so I can't wait to get into it. And of course the Weilong GTS version 2. Now I have heard nothing but good things about this one, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. Alright, so we'll just get these cubing classroom puzzles out of the way first. We have the MF3S and the MF7. So we'll just go ahead and get it started with the MF3S. Now I believe the only difference with this and the MF3 is that this one is stickerless, and Moyu has started to implement the new frosted surface that she does do on their budget puzzles. Now, I'm not necessarily a big fan of this, nor am I really bothered by it, but I just don't think it's necessary to have. But I mean, it is what it is, so we'll just go ahead and get into the turning of this thing. This one actually feels a lot better than the regular MF3. This one is just a lot smoother, it's a lot faster too. But yeah, all they did was add the S to the name and make it stickerless. But it turns a lot better, definitely. Still has that Weilong type feeling, but it's a little bit faster and slightly smoother, but overall not too big of a difference. So I guess if you're just someone that wants a cheap 3x3 for a project or just a mod, then the MF3 would definitely be the way to go, but otherwise, it's really nothing too special. Alright, now for the MF7. Now I was actually really impressed by the MF7S. And again, I'm not too sure what is going on with this one. I'm not too sure what the differences are, and there is just a very minute change in the name, but we'll just go ahead and get into the turning. Yeah, it feels pretty much the same as the other one, honestly, if not a little bit more stable, and maybe a little bit faster in the inner layers. But one thing that I'm definitely liking about this cube over the MF7S are the center caps. These don't necessarily feel like they're gonna fall off pretty easily, and with the MF7S I constantly had to worry about them popping off or just kind of falling out. And you can even see too that the center caps aren't really raising up, unlike the MF7S just out of the box. And so this definitely feels like an upgrade to me just with the center caps alone. But aside from that, I really can't tell what the difference is. So I'll definitely have to look into that and get back to you guys. Alright, now time for some non-WCA puzzles. Now these look super cool, so I'll go ahead and get into the Mirror S first. Alright, so here it is. That looks really amazing. We'll just get into the turning on this thing. Wow, definitely really good for a non-WCA cube. I really love that Moyu is starting to do like speed versions of non-WCA puzzles. Not that you're gonna speed solve these things or anything, but it just makes it turn a lot nicer, and it just provides a more enjoyable solving experience. So just to clarify, the Mirror S isn't actually a true mirror blocks. It may look like one, but if you look at it closely, you can see that all the sides do have the same kind of design pattern, and it's just that they're oriented differently, and so it doesn't necessarily have the same parity as a mirror blocks, but overall, the solving is the same since it is just a 3x3 shape mod. But nonetheless, still a great quality puzzle, and I've seen some of Moyu's videos where they do some kind of swapping modification to them, so I'll definitely have a try at those. Alright, and so now into the windmill variant. Now this one looks really cool. I've never seen any kind of mirror block windmill cube before, and wow, that just looks amazing. I'm really loving the look of this. And so turning wise, it turns really well. It's pretty much the same feeling as the Mirror S. It's kind of like an upgraded Weilong or Sulong, so kind of that budget 3x3 type feeling, but with the flooring cuts, it performs really nicely and it's super stable. And so I'm not totally sure how difficult these should be, but they are 3x3 shape mods, so it should be pretty straightforward, but nonetheless, it seems like a really fun puzzle. Alright, so getting into the more exciting puzzles, we have the Chuwen 2x2. Now, there are actually a lot of misconceptions about this cube. The prototype versions came with magnets in them, but the retail version actually doesn't, and so a lot of people were actually disappointed in that. But let's just get into the turning on this thing. Wow, first turns, that was really awesome. Right away it feels kind of like a mix of a Weilong and an Weilong V2 to me. It's really stable, but it does feel pretty fast. And the reason I say it's an Weilong V2 and Hualong mix is because it has that kind of hollowish feeling that the Hualong gives off, but it also has a little bit of that scratchiness that the Weilong V2 has, and it has that same kind of stability. But wow, I am really liking the feeling on this. It does sound scratchy, but the turning is really smooth nonetheless. And I am really loving that it's so stable because it is pretty fast, but it's still really controllable because the puzzle isn't really deforming all that much. So yeah, out of the box, definitely a super promising cube, but right away, definitely have high hopes for this thing. And finally, the Weilong GTS version 2. And so, in my opinion, the box is kind of overdone, but I mean, I guess I can't really complain. It does look super cool and it's got that whole magnetic thing going on. Alright, so it looks like we have a few cards here. Just got a QR one and then also a Team Moyu one. Alright, so we'll just get into the actual puzzle now. First off, it feels a little bit smaller. I think it's around 55 millimeters, but let's just go ahead and get into the turning. Wow, that is really nice. Right away, it definitely doesn't feel like the GTS version 1 to me. I honestly wasn't too big of a fan of the version 1. It had a really crispy feeling that I wasn't really a fan of, but this one is much smoother. It has a buttery smooth feeling, and it really just glides. It has a really enjoyable feeling to me. And speed-wise, this thing does really well. It's kind of at that point where it's so fast that you can't really control it especially well, but even though it is so stable, you might want to consider getting the magnetic version, which should be coming out pretty soon. But just stock out of the box, the GTS2 is definitely a really great cube. Aside from the speed, which I personally can't control too well, the corner cutting itself is actually doing pretty well, the stability is super nice, and the overall feeling is really well suited to my turning style. And so overall, I would actually really recommend it. And I know a lot of people say that this is kind of Moyu's version of the Valk. I personally really disagree. Aside from the size and the technical aspects like the stability and the corner cutting, the speed and all that, these cubes are really different. The mechanisms themselves are totally original to the companies, and the feeling and the overall solving experience is completely unique to each cube. And even compared to the version 1, the GTS V2 feels nothing like it, and if anything, Moyu could have labeled it as a separate cube. The mechanisms are dramatically different, and so that does provide for a much different feeling cube. And to me, it's kind of like the comparison of the Weilong V2 to the Weilong GT. But regardless, I am really impressed by this cube out of the box, and I imagine with setting up, it can only get better. So definitely look out for a review on this thing. So after having these cubes for a few more weeks, I've gotten the chance to develop some more well-rounded thoughts, and so starting with the MF3S, this thing actually feels much more different than the MF3. Now I can't really find out why, but it just feels much smoother and a little bit faster. As for the MF7, the center caps are really the only thing that makes this cube more enjoyable than the MF7S for me. And again, as I said before, if you have the MF7S already, don't bother getting the MF7. But if you're on a budget and you're in the market looking for a new 7x7, then the MF7 from Cubing Classroom is definitely the way to go. As for Cubing Classroom's non-WCA puzzles, I definitely think they're must-haves in your collection even if you're not totally into non-WCA puzzles. They're great quality, they perform super well, and the overall solving experience is definitely really enjoyable. It's not too difficult and it is pretty intuitive if you know how to solve a 3x3, but at the same time it's not too simple to the point where it's boring. As for the Chuwen 2x2 and the GTS version 2, I am super impressed by both cubes and I do plan on having reviews soon, so if you want to hear some more detailed thoughts about them, be sure to stay tuned for those. So that about wraps it up for yet another huge Moyu unboxing. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.